I went more viral than a Premier League footballer on holiday this week with this following tweet, which clearly touched a nerve. Here's what I said. Quick reminder, the economic crisis we are in is because we borrowed £500 billion in a failed attempt to stop a predominantly mild seasonal respiratory virus. Hashtag autumn statement. Now, understandably, there is a lot of anger, including among millions of Conservative supporters, about this week's autumn statement, which was a cash grab on anyone that gets up early in the morning and does an honest day's graft. Whilst I fully support the protection of the pensions triple lock, it's fair to say the only winners this week were the retired and those on benefits. So the entire working population who put in the extra hours, take the risks, and sacrifice so much will be punished with higher taxes and worse public services. There is, of course, more than one way to skin a cat. Liz Truss's ill-fated mini-budget was, in my view, a failure of sequencing and a failure of political and economic communication, not of policy. And the likes of the International Monetary Fund and others have conceded that the recession that we're now in will be longer and deeper in the absence of that mini-budget. And the Institute of Fiscal Studies have said that Britain faces soaring taxes until 2050. Now, I don't remember the IFS saying that lockdowns were wrong or saying that we couldn't afford them. Funny that. Sunak and Hunt have, in my view, overcorrected the other way, allowing Rolex-wearing financiers around the world to dictate government economic policy and to send us into a doom loop of high taxes and low growth. Yesterday's autumn statement is a tax on income, a tax on hard work, and a tax on aspiration. Astonishing that it should come from a Conservative government. But either way, what do you expect? Under Truss's plan, you borrow to stimulate growth, which clears the deficits. And under Hunt's plan, you cut spending and raise taxes to balance the books. But there isn't a huge difference between either policy in the general scheme of things. Look at this useful graph from the economic commentator Christopher Snowdon. If you have a look at the trajectory of this graph, you'll see it labelled on the right-hand side there, OK? That's the rate of tax over the years. You've got one arrow, which shows you where taxes are under sensible Conservatives, and just a couple of millimetres below are the libertarian extremists. Very little difference. Here's the thing, folks. Everybody is missing the point. Whether it was Truss's plan or Hunt's plan, we were buggered either way. And it's not like some of us didn't flag this up in advance. Here is a transcript from a monologue I delivered on my old talk radio programme on Friday, the 20th of November, 2020, almost 2 years to the day. Here's what I said just 8 months into the pandemic. I said we have knowingly wrecked the economy as part of an unproven and debatable scientific experiment. We have crashed the economy into a brick wall with no tangible evidence lockdowns work, and so I'm afraid the cupboard is bare. We've been saying for months on this show that the COVID measures, which may or may not be the right measures, time will tell. I have severe doubts. But love them or loathe them, these measures have consequences, and those consequences are starting to be felt. Be clear, this is just the beginning. And be clear, our leaders chose this path. That was 2 years ago, folks. Anyone that tells you our economic problems are because of Vladimir Putin or Brexit or 12 years of Tory misrule is lying to you. Thick as pig shit economists, calling themselves professors with letters after their name, patronised me in early interviews during the pandemic, telling me not to worry my pretty little head about the debt. The borrowing, they said, was effectively cost neutral or even advantageous. Can you believe they said that? Well, that's the experts for you. And if you spoke out, if you questioned why healthy people were imprisoned in their own homes, if you wanted the government to do a cost-benefit analysis of these measures, if you figured the economic damage from shutting down would lead to a far greater loss of life than the virus itself, you were a bad person. But who are the bad people now? anyone in the public eye that called for this shocking policy to happen. Not once, not twice, but 3 times, including various TV presenters, journalists and commentators. We know who they are, as well as Boris Johnson, who needlessly folded to Sage, and the cervix-free leader of the opposition, Sir Keir Starmer, who wanted more. He called Freedom Day reckless. Don't believe the lies, the misdirection, the smoke and mirrors. The smoking gun is our disastrous overreaction to a seasonal respiratory virus which was never going to be stopped. Forget Putin, Brexit, or pre-pandemic economic policy. The elephant in the room is lockdowns. Tusk, tusk. And I'm no Dumbo. This elephant has a long memory, and you should see my trunk.